Just over the Red Sea was the morning sun rising, painting the water in a striking shade of liquid gold. If you were lucky to be flying above it, you'd never want to leave. This was what the lone F-16 pilot from the 421st Fighter Squadron must have felt early that morning as he went on the normal patrol route. Unknown to him, in a few seconds, he'd be moments away from death in an ambush that would change modern warfare forever. The time is 9:47 a.m. local time on the 19th of February 2025, and American warships are patrolling the waters below the F-16 pilot, a routine move on one of the world's most dangerous waterways. In just minutes, they'd be reminded of why it has earned that title. Hidden in the rocky hills near Houthis, Yemen, a Houthi SA-6 missile system crackles to life. The metal beast powers up, its radar locking onto the American fighter with deadly intent. In the span of a heartbeat, two missiles scream off their rails, accelerating to nearly 3 times the speed of sound. The F-16's radar explodes with warnings. Incoming, incoming, incoming. Time slows to a crawl. The pilot's training kicks in like lightning. Flares and countermeasures burst from the aircraft's belly in frantic pulses of light and metal. The jet snaps into a bone-crushing dive, plummeting from 30,000 feet to 15,000 feet in seconds that feel like hours. One wrong move, 1 millisecond of hesitation, and this becomes tomorrow's headline as another name carved into black marble. But today, luck and cutting-edge technology dance together in perfect harmony. The missiles zoom past, so close the pilot can probably taste their exhaust. His breathing steadies, hand still gripping the stick with white-knuckle intensity. Everything has just changed forever. Everything. What saved that F-16 wasn't luck. It was 3 layers of technology the Houthis never saw coming. And here's exactly how 23 seconds of pure survival rewrote the rules of modern warfare. The moment the Houthi SA-6 missile system went hot, the F-16's AN/APG-83 radar picked up the launch at 42 kilometers out. This advanced AESA radar can track a baseball-sized object from 300 miles away. That's like spotting a penny from the top of the Empire State Building. It gave the pilot just enough warning to act. But here's what makes this terrifying. The SA-6 isn't just a fire-and-forget missile. It's semi-active, meaning it relies on constant radar guidance from the ground, like a bloodhound that never loses the scent. So the pilot didn't just evade, he dropped altitude fast in a steep dive, trying to break the radar lock linking the missile to its launch crew. But that wasn't the only threat. More missiles were already screaming through the air. As the F-16 twisted and dove, the radar's situational awareness started to degrade, especially beyond 60 degrees off-axis, where tracking accuracy dropped to 47%. Some threats became invisible. That's when the second layer of defense kicked in. The thermopylon integrated dispensing systems exploded into action. Mounted under each wing, these 19-kilogram defense units use 6 ultraviolet sensors to scan 360 degrees for missile launches, like having eyes in the back of your head that can see death coming. Once they detected the fast-approaching SA-6s, they countered with absolute fury. In seconds, the aircraft burst with a defensive cloud spanning 3 football fields, 12 MJU-50B flares burning at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than molten lava, and 24 RR-180 chaff bundles exploded outward, forming a massive wall of heat and electromagnetic noise. It was pure chaos designed to blind missile seekers and force them off course. Still, the missiles came. That's when the final layer activated. With no time left, the pilot triggered his last resort, the AN/ALQ-184 jamming pod slung beneath the jet. This electronic warfare beast covers frequencies from 2 to 20 GHz, well within the SA-6's radar band, and sends out signals 10,000 times per second, faster than a machine gun fires bullets. The pod's digital memory launched a brutal counterattack in the electromagnetic spectrum, jamming the guidance signal from the ground. In an instant, the missile's radar link was severed. Accuracy dropped by 70%. The SA-6s veered off course, lost their lock, and plunged harmlessly into the Red Sea. 1 pilot, 3 defensive layers, 23 seconds. A dogfight with no bullets, just data, deception, and dominance. The F-16 survived, but this was just the beginning of a day that would reshape the entire conflict. But the Houthis weren't done. What happened next would seal their fate forever. 44 minutes later, a US MQ-9 Reaper drone from Jebeli Airfield in Djibouti was conducting routine reconnaissance 50 miles northeast of Houda, monitoring Houthi supply convoys. The drone operators sitting in climate-controlled trailers half a world away had no idea they were about to join the morning's deadly ballet. Frustrated Houthi gunners, still burning from their failure to down the F-16, decided to try their luck again. Another SA-6 missile streaked skyward, its seeker head hunting for the unmanned aircraft cruising through Yemeni airspace. The Reaper's Pandora missile warning system screamed alerts within 0.8 seconds of detection. Unlike the manned F-16, the drone had no pilot to feel the G-forces, no human limitations to consider. It could pull maneuvers that would crush a human being into unconsciousness. The drone climbed hard above 15,000 feet, staying out of the missile's 30-degree blind spot directly below the aircraft's horizon. Its AN/ALE-47 countermeasure system fired 8 flares in 4 seconds, creating a 300-square-meter chaff cloud designed to confuse the incoming death. The ALR-69 radar warning receiver, monitoring frequencies from 0.5 to 20 GHz, detected the SA-6's radar emissions at 200 kilometers with pinpoint accuracy. This gave the operators in Djibouti just enough warning to deploy countermeasures and save their multi-million-dollar aircraft. But the Reaper didn't escape unscathed. When it landed back at base, maintenance crews discovered that several of the SA-6's 12,000 steel pellets, each hitting with the force of a Major League fastball, had punctured the right wing. For the US, this was the final straw. This wasn't just another skirmish in the Middle East's endless conflicts. This was the moment the Houthis made the biggest strategic mistake of their existence and triggered the most devastating response in the conflict's history. Until that moment, Houthi attacks had some degree of plausible deniability. Hitting commercial vessels brought international sympathy and calls for ceasefires. But targeting a US Air Force pilot? That's an act of war, and it justified everything that came after. Inside the war room of the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, the mission status flipped from routine patrol to immediate retaliation in seconds. The Pentagon's message crackled across encrypted channels. This will not go unanswered. Here's what made this response different. The US didn't wait weeks or months to respond through diplomatic channels. By sunset, precision strikes were raining down on suspected launch sites, delivered by sea-launched cruise missiles and F-18 Super Hornets screaming off the Eisenhower's deck. The USS Spruance received orders to steam closer to the Yemeni coast. Once in position, the crew received encrypted launch orders from Central Command. But instead of the usual Tomahawk cruise missiles, the Navy chose something far more dramatic and deadly. The SM-6 missile is one of the Navy's most advanced air defense weapons, typically reserved for shooting down the most dangerous aerial threats. With a 1,500-kilogram explosive warhead and a top speed of Mach 3.5, faster than most cars travel on highways, it's designed to obliterate anything in the sky. But in recent years, the Navy has repurposed it for ground strikes, and this would be its first public combat use in that role. Why the SM-6? Because the target was moving. Satellite imagery showed the SA-6 launcher and its IS-91 radar were still near Houda, but with a top speed of 34 miles per hour, they could be hundreds of miles away by the time traditional missiles arrived. Time was of the essence. A few hours after the ambush, 2 SM-6 missiles roared out of the Spruance's vertical launch cells with flashes of light that could be seen for miles. The missiles didn't fly in straight lines, as that would be suicide. Instead, they followed pre-programmed waypoints, dancing through the sky in unpredictable patterns that made interception nearly impossible. 6 minutes later, they found their target. The SM-6 traveled 200 miles in under 6 minutes, covering distance faster than a commercial airliner. The SA-6 launcher that had dared to threaten an American pilot was transformed into smoking scrap metal, along with 8 Houthi operators who made the fatal mistake of pulling the trigger. But America wasn't finished. The retaliation that followed would make the entire region tremble. Beginning at 6 p.m., the USS Harry S. Truman's flight deck erupted in controlled chaos. Wave after wave of F-18 Super Hornets launched into the gathering darkness, their afterburners painting orange streaks across the sky. But these weren't carrying standard munitions. They were armed with AGM-154 joint standoff weapons, GPS-guided death delivered from over 130 kilometers away. Between 6 p.m. and 11:30 that night, American warplanes conducted a symphony of destruction on storage bunkers near Sana. Each JSOW carried either 145 bomblets designed to shred everything in a wide area, or 192 pounds of high explosives focused into a single devastating punch. As if that wasn't enough, the USS Gravely added an exclamation point to the night's work. 6 Tomahawk cruise missiles crashed into the smoldering ruins, pulverizing anything that might have survived the airstrikes. The damage assessment was staggering. 14 Kahir M2 ballistic missiles destroyed, 3 more SA-6 launchers eliminated, and 23 anti-ship cruise missiles reduced to twisted metal and concrete dust. At the end, this wasn't just another fight, but a turning point that rewrote the rules of engagement. For months, the US military in the Middle East had followed strict rules: only defend, never attack first. But when Houthi fighters in Yemen launched missiles at a US F-16 jet, everything changed in those 23 seconds of survival. The US responded fast and hard. No more warnings, no more delays. The new message was clear. If you attack American troops, expect powerful and immediate retaliation that will make you regret ever trying. The Houthis made a fatal miscalculation. They're experienced fighters with advanced weapons, but by targeting a manned US jet, they triggered a full-scale response that obliterated their capabilities. Their missile sites were destroyed and their forces scattered. For days after, no more missiles were fired. So, what's next? Will the strike stop future attacks or escalate things beyond control? No one knows, but one thing is crystal clear. The rules have changed forever. From now on, attacks on US forces will be answered with overwhelming force. And every day, the Red Sea sky holds the possibility of the next big decision that could shape the future, for better or worse. If you enjoyed this video and would like to learn more about modern military warfare, then be sure to check out this video here.